Operation Win Pepper Back, Chapter 6, written by AliasWritings on AO3. Penny demands that they start cooking lessons immediately, so instead of spending their time in the lab on Wednesday, they go up to the penthouse kitchen. And according to Penny, he has too many ovens. I mean, you don't even cook. When was the last time these were used? You don't need skill to throw a frozen pizza in the oven, Tony defended. I hope you're not literally throwing the pizzas into the oven. What did I say about the sass, kid? Fine. Penny raises her hands in surrender. I still don't know why you need 4 ovens. Every day people get by with only 1. What if I need to cook multiple things at once and it doesn't all fit in one? And then it's good you have 3 more. Okay, enough. Tony throws an apron at her head. You're here to cook, not bully me. Penny doesn't stop giggling to herself for 5 minutes. What's Miss Potts' favourite food? Penny's stare grows harder the longer Tony goes without answering. Pancakes? Really? Either that or she hates them. Penny stares some more, opens her mouth, and closes it before shrugging. Well, now I want pancakes, so that's what we're making, she decided. Assuming you have everything. Where's your flour? Great question. Tony pulls open the cabinet closest to him. No flour there. He had the kitchen stocked yesterday, but he was busy, so he doesn't know where anything is. Oh, found it! She had to climb onto the counter to reach it, and when she does, she sets it on the island between them. She narrows her eyes at him. I can't believe you have a griddle on your stove. A lot of people have those. Okay, sure. Penny hummed. Tony waits until she turns her back to roll his eyes. I saw that! The kitchen somehow ends up covered in flour. Tony doesn't mind in the slightest. Penny winces after she burns the first pancake and says, I may have oversold my abilities. Tony just shrugged and took a bite anyway. Don't worry about it, I do that every day. The next pancake is slightly less burnt, and so on until eventually they've perfected them. Tony will admit they're the best pancakes he's ever had. Before leaving, Penny insists on helping clean up. By the time he sends her home, she's already late. Once she's there, she texts him with homework. Homework! To research recipes for them to try next time. She, in return, says she'll find out what Miss Potts' favourite food is. Later, Tony will think the first day Penny tried to teach him to cook will forever be one of his favourites. Tony decides to ask May Parker to lunch. They texted while Penny was gone, and Penny was spending more time with him, but this is only the second time seeing each other in person. He figured asking to gift her niece a car wasn't an over-the-phone question. They met at a cafe just outside Queen's. It's nicer on the inside than he was expecting, but no one gives him a second look. He hums in appreciation. May is already there, in a corner booth. She smiles when she sees him and waves him over. He knows she and Penny aren't blood-related, but he thinks they smile in similar ways. Miss Parker, he greeted. The place smells of coffee and freshly baked croissants. Please, call me May. I feel like I know you better than I do. Penny talks about you all the time. Oh, does she? Tony grins. Oh, don't tell her I told you that, May chuckles. She looks tired, but gives off the vibe of electric energy. Tony wonders if the coffee in front of her is her first. So, what was it that you wanted to ask me? Right to the point. I like that about you, May. Tony shifts in his seat a little. He should have gotten a coffee before sitting down. Pip mentioned that Penny's birthday is coming up soon. I can't believe she's going to be 16. I swear it was just yesterday that she was learning to walk. Of course, we didn't have her then, but we were very involved from the start. She's just growing up so fast. Soon enough she'll be off at college. I don't know what I'll do once she's gone. Sorry, I'm rambling. Penny does that too. I guess I know where she gets it from. She has a lot of my best qualities, May smirked. So, what's this about her birthday? Well, I wanted to get her something. A gift. Pepper has informed me that I can go overboard more often than not, so I thought I'd run it by you first. Oh, well, what were you thinking of getting her? A car. Uh, May cuts herself off with a little sputter. She recovers quickly. A car? I don't think we would be able to accept that. Hear me out. I already have one in mind. It can barely be called a car right now. He pulls out his phone and slides it across the table to May. On it, there's a photo of a vintage sports car, way worse for wear. It's a junker, really. Doesn't even run. But with a little tender love and care, we'll get her there. I thought Penny and I could work on it together. May smiles at him in a way that makes him feel bashful, and Tony Stark does not feel bashful. This is very thoughtful. She'll love it. Is that a yes? If you do one more thing. Anything, Tony said quickly, and without a doubt, he knows he means it. And the car may or may not already be in the garage. Baby steps. He may not have done it in the right order, but at least he asked. I'm afraid I never got around to teaching her how to drive. Oh, not a problem. I can teach her. Or hire someone to do it if you're more comfortable with that. My head of security is a good driver. He used to drive me around a lot. I could bribe him into doing it. Or get Pepper to tell him to do it. She's scared of her. May chuckles. I don't think Penny would want anyone but you to teach her. Okay, yeah, not a problem. You know, she's been teaching me to cook. Or trying anyway. I'm afraid I'm not the best student. She tells me you're doing very well. Oh, yeah? Good to know. But I'm not sure Penny is able to speak negative in any sense of the word. Me either, May said. And before I forget, can you do one thing for me? Tell Pepper that I got your permission for all of this. I think I can do that, and for what it's worth, I think Pepper would approve. There's a high-speed car chase early Friday morning. Tony is asleep while it happens. He does that sometimes. But he hears about it after he wakes up. Tony has taken it upon herself to play the news for him now. He doesn't remember asking her to do that, but he hasn't told her to stop. It didn't go for long, a few miles, before the spider guy or girl intervened. There's footage of them swinging in at the last second and moving civilians out of harm's way. A few cars die along the way, but no humans. The whole thing is stopped when Spider whatever attaches webs, because isn't that on brand, to the back of the criminal's vehicle and pulls until it stops. It really is impressive, the strength it would take to do that. He wonders if he can get Cap to arm wrestle the guy sometime. The police swarm the truck, guns out. They cuff everyone, but the footage follows Spider Guy as he walks backwards. He waves to the crowd, but his head jolts to the side just in time to be hit by a speeding car. Tony winces in sympathy, but the guy jumps right back to his feet. He gives a thumbs up before swinging away. Still, that had to hurt. He decides he'll spend the morning ignoring all his responsibilities and working on the spider suits instead. He figured he should be able to present some options when the time comes, if it ever does. He thinks he'll go and ask Pepper and Penny to lunch, but that's it today. Penny told him space is a good thing to give someone, sometimes before they ask for it. Who knew? Entirely engrossed in his new work, Tony almost lets the hours escape him entirely. He's only 45 minutes late in going down to Pepper's office. Maybe she hasn't eaten yet. Either way, he knows Penny will get food with him. Pepper's assistant is at her desk, first time for everything. But when Tony walks by with a grin, she doesn't try to stop him. She does narrow her eyes at him, but he's not deterred. Still, he decides to knock before entering. "Beautiful day," he said. Pepper shakes her head, but she's smiling. Tony glances around her office and at the closed door behind him. Something's missing. Where's the kid? She won't be here today. She wasn't feeling well, Pepper said. She doesn't seem too concerned, but Tony isn't quite satisfied. He remembers the last time she wasn't feeling well. I'm sure she's fine, Tony. Probably just stayed up too late. She said she'd be back on Monday, Pepper said. She stops what she's doing and looks over at him, the mischievous glint in her eyes telling him he's being tested. If you're so worried, you can always go check on her. I assume you're not so overloaded with work since you're here. Maybe I will, Tony said smugly. Take that stupid test. He's going to ace this thing. And check on the kid while doing so. I'll take soup. Without another word, he spins on his heel and marches out of the office. Tony already knows where the Parkers live. He had sent Penny that beer when he thought she was sick the first time. She never did mention it, but he'd forgotten until now. He wonders if she got it. As much as it's a very him thing to do, Tony doesn't plan to just show up unannounced and without permission, especially not if Penny is home alone. So he asks May. She won't be there, she tells him. She's at work and will be all day. But she still gives him permission to stop by and check on Penny. He does get soup on his way over. He's not sure if Penny really is sick, or maybe Pepper was right and she just stayed up too late. He's pretty sure that's a teenage staple. He doesn't let Penny know he's coming. He's been so focused on getting May's consent that he hadn't thought about it until after he's knocked on their door. Well, too late now, he thinks, just before the door opens. Penny is in her pyjamas, her hair a mess, and she squints at him. "Not hallucinating, it's me," he said. "You gonna let me in, kid?" "Oh, right." Penny slowly steps back and holds the door open for him. Tony enters the small apartment and observes her as she closes the door. Outwardly, she appears to be fine, no obvious injuries. Why is he looking for injuries? Maybe because she has more bruises than anyone should, and she always lies about how she got them. But other than being a little hunched over herself and the dark circles under her eyes, she seems fine, maybe a little less enthusiastic than usual. Just tired, like Pepper had said. What are you doing here, Mr. Stark?" she asked, while moving past him into the living room. He sees her throwing a blanket over something quickly, but doesn't see what before it's covered. "Not that it's not good to see you." "Of course it is." Tony sets the soup on the coffee table while Penny sits on the couch. She pulls her knees to her chest, and Tony swears he sees her wince as she does it. "What's wrong with you?" Not his most tactful moment. Not his least, either. Penny furrows her brows. "Nothing." "You called out for nothing." "I don't appreciate the interrogation." Now Tony knows he won't believe whatever excuse she gives him. When he gets defensive, he gets snarky too. "I have really bad cramps, if you must know." Like he thought, Tony doesn't believe her, but he doesn't call her out either. Instead, he says, I should have brought chocolate." Penny snorts and tries to discreetly wrap an arm around her side. "All right, fine, scoot over." "What?" "I'm going to sit here. You like movies? Turn something on. I need your opinion on something." He sits on the couch beside her with a pillow between them. Penny still regards him like she doesn't believe this is happening, but she takes the remote and turns on the TV. Meanwhile, Tony pulls out his phone. As an afterthought, when he gets everything in order, Tony says, "Feel free to kick me out at any time. I won't take it personally." He's not ignorant to the fact that she's a teenage girl whose home he just invaded, but Penny only laughs. "I'm not going to kick you out, Mr. Stark. Do you like comedies?" Yeah, the stupid ones though, not the romance ones." I wonder why that is," Penny whispers. Tony shoots her a glare, but continues to smile. "You're a menace." "So I've been told," Penny mumbled. She turns something on, but Tony doesn't even glance at it. "So, you live in Queens," Tony stated. Penny gives him a look that screams, "You don't say." He ignores it. "You know about this spider person?" "Huh?" "Spider-themed vigilante swinging around. Mostly spotted in Queens. I figured he, she, whatever is probably from the area. Makes sense, right?"
Sure."
Penny hums and turns the volume up one click. "I've heard about them. Don't know much, though. A lot of the kids in my class are fans. My friend Ned is infatuated. If I didn't know any better, I'd say he was Spider-Man." "Do you think it's Spider-Man or Spider-Woman? That's a bit of a mouthful."
"I don't know, Mr. Stark. He, she, they're cool, I guess. I just hadn't thought about it much."
Reasonable, Tony thinks. Not everyone fixates on things the way he does. Especially random vigilantes. Now that he thinks about it, he's glad Penny isn't obsessing over some random masked person. "I spend a lot of time not thinking about things," Tony said. Penny raises an eyebrow at the obvious sarcasm, but doesn't comment. "Well, what do you think of this?" He passes over his phone. On it are the specs for one of the spider suits, his personal favourite, he thinks. It's hard to choose, they're all really good. In his completely unbiased opinion.
"A suit," Penny said. You're making him a suit?
Well, I figured why not? He's doing good work, could do even better with the proper equipment. Anything is better than that onesie he's running around in now.
That's really cool, Mr. Stark.
She's still looking at his phone, sliding her finger along the screen and studying the suit closely. But despite her words, she sounds less than enthused.
How long have you been working on it?
Not long. I thought we could work on it together if you wanted. Might do good to have some more input. I still don't know how that webbing works, but it shouldn't be too hard to figure out.
Yeah, could be fun.
Penny hands him his phone back, but doesn't ask any questions. That alone is weird. Penny is like him in the way that she likes knowing things. She likes learning, and she'll ask 1,000 questions about one thing until she has it all figured out. Tony tries not to take it personally. She had said she wasn't feeling well, and he's in her home. Maybe he should go. When Penny excuses herself to the bathroom, Tony takes the time to finally observe the apartment. It's small, in a cozy kind of way. Not like the penthouse at all. It's clean. The couch doesn't match the chair, and the blankets are soft and fuzzy and warm. The pillows are a little flat, but comfortable. He reveals what Penny had been trying to hide from him. An almost brand new get-well-soon stuffed bear. One he picked out himself. He smiles and covers it back up. There's decorations and a few plants scattered around. Photos line the walls, and he stands to get a better look at them. He smiles at the ones of a younger Penny. In one, she's proudly displaying a toothless grin. There's more of her in May, a couple he doesn't recognise. Tony never asked where Penny's parents were, and he never looked into it. But it's not hard to figure out they're not here. Gone in a way they can't come back. In other photos, there's a man. He's with May, his arm wrapped around her waist, thrown over her shoulders. They're both grinning ear to ear. In others, he's with Penny, holding her on his hip when she was smaller, some of them sitting on the very couch behind him. In one, they're laughing with what he thinks is popcorn spilled all around them. That's Uncle Ben. Tony doesn't jump. He doesn't, and he'll deny it until the day he dies. He turns to Penny and watches her move to stand beside him. We were watching a scary movie. May got scared and dropped the popcorn. It's a happy memory. Tony can see that clearly from the photo. But looking at it now, Penny only looks sad. That was 2 months before he died. I'm sorry, kid, Tony whispered. Maybe she wasn't lying about feeling bad. He hadn't been able to find anything wrong physically, despite her barely there winces. Maybe she was just sad. It hadn't even been a year since he died. Of course, she's still mourning. Yeah, Penny mumbled. With no idea what to do, Tony places a hesitant hand on her shoulder. She leans into the touch, cold under his hand. Slowly, as if disarming a bomb, he wraps his arm around her shoulders. Half-hung at best, really, but Penny shifts a little closer all the same. Do you want to tell me about him? He ventures to ask. Penny takes 3 deep breaths before answering. I think I'll just cry, and neither of us wants that. I am a pro at handling tears, actually. It's one of my hidden talents. A blatant lie, and Penny knows it. She laughs weakly and wipes her nose with the back of her hand. Also, I'm told that sometimes crying helps. What is he saying? The last thing he wants is for Penny to cry. But he can't get rid of this weight in his chest. It settled there when Penny didn't return any of his enthusiasm like she usually does. He doesn't want her to cry, but he doesn't want her to be sad. So, if awkwardly sitting with a crying teenager is what it takes, then so be it. People would be proud. Penny takes the photo off the wall and stares down at it. A single silent tear splashes against the glass. My parents died when I was 6. May and Ben took me in. He was a really good dad. Her voice breaks a little. Tony holds her a little tighter. I bet he was, kiddo. I miss him. She hugs the photo to her chest, and Tony feels her shoulders start to shake. Tony really doesn't know what to do when people cry. It goes all the way back to his childhood, he thinks. His father was far from affectionate. His mother tried to be, but he thought seeking her comfort made him weak. He hadn't wanted Howard to think of him as weak. But not a day goes by where he doesn't regret not hugging his mother more. So, Tony does the only thing he can think to do and wraps Penny in a proper hug. She cries harder, and for a second, Tony thinks it was the wrong move, but then Penny returns the hug. With a single arm still holding the photo to her chest, Penny grips the back of his jacket tightly. Seemingly on its own, his hand lifts to rest against the back of her head. He remembered one of the few times his mother hugged him. He had outwardly protested, but inside he hadn't ever wanted to move from her embrace. She had squeezed him so tight he hadn't thought he could breathe. Her perfectly manicured nails had scraped lightly against his scalp in the most soothing way. He'd pulled away far too soon, and she'd let him. Tony doesn't pull away now. He lets Penny squeeze him as tightly as she wants, lets her cry into his chest, and pets her hair. He takes the photo before she can drop it, allowing her arm to join the other. He sets it down as carefully as he can and catches the eyes of Ben Parker. He makes a silent promise to the man to do everything in his power to protect the girl in his arms. They order pizza, and Penny introduces him to reality TV. He thinks maybe the Avengers team would make good candidates for their own shows. Penny agrees with him despite having never met them before. They eat way too much junk food and laugh until they're nearly sick from it. May looks like she wants to scold them, but when Penny hugs her aunt tightly and offers her a bag of M&Ms, her resolve crumbles and she joins them on the couch. The day is gone and Penny is asleep on her aunt's shoulder. The TV is still on, but the volume is lowered. May absent-mindedly runs her fingers through her niece's hair while she watches the screen. Tony truly doesn't understand The Bachelorette, but he can't deny it's entertaining. At least with the Parkers it is. He doesn't think he would find it funnier by himself. Penny's witty remarks and May's dry humour are what make it good. But it's all quiet now. Tony has stopped paying attention to who's getting a rose and who's crying over someone they just met. Penny told him she thinks most of the tears are fake. He's inclined to agree. "Thank you for staying with her," May whispered suddenly. Tony blinks over at her. "I knew she wasn't having a good day. She insisted she was fine and that I go to work." "Hadn't really been the plan," Tony admitted. He's not sure what the plan was, but he doesn't think it had been this. But he wouldn't go back and change it if he could. He doesn't know when it happened or even how, but in the short time he's known her, Penny Parker had become important to him. It's one of the biggest mysteries he's ever been presented with. He doesn't care much to try and figure it out. "She'll never admit it, but you're important to her. She looks up to you, so I have to ask you." May meets his gaze, and no matter how badly he wants to look away, he can't. Please, please don't break her heart. She can't go through another loss like that." "Honestly, May, I'd sooner give up my fortune." She smiles gratefully and blinks tear-filled eyes down at Penny. "Did she tell you how this whole thing started?" "She tells me everything. Well, most things. I think since Ben, she's been more distant." May sighs. She sounds beyond exhausted. "But something about you scheming with you to get back with Pepper?" "Probably not the best first impression I could have made. Definitely not the worst." "No, not the worst," May chuckled. "But Penny spoke highly of you from the start. I worried you wouldn't turn out like the picture she had of you in her head." "And what's the verdict on that? Is the jury still out?" "No, Tony, I think you've exceeded expectations." A lump rises in his throat. He clears it away and wipes a hand over his chin. "What can I say? I'm an overachiever." Another thing you two have in common. Penny shifts. They both freeze until she settles again. "Pepper speaks highly of you too. You know, Penny and I are both rooting for you two." "Well, if you could drop in a good word, I would appreciate it." Tony is only half joking. He doesn't expect May to do it, but he wouldn't protest if she did. "I don't think you'll need it." "Why? Has Pepper said something?" Tony asks, a little too eagerly. He dials himself back. "If you ask me, I think it's just a matter of time." "Before—" "May?" Penny's voice is groggy. She rubs her eyes and pushes herself off her aunt. What time is it? Bedtime, May said with a smile and smooths Penny's hair down. Something else they have in common, Tony thinks, is the uncanny ability to get bedhead no matter what. It's a well-guarded secret, but his hair isn't always perfect. Say goodnight to Tony. Penny's head turns to him. He thinks if she wasn't half asleep, she would look surprised. Oh, hey, Mr. Stark, I thought you'd gone. And missed the ending? He points to the TV. I wouldn't have been able to sleep. Penny laughs and wraps the blanket around her shoulders tighter. Head to bed, kid. I'll see you next week, okay? Okay. Good night, Mr. Stark. Get home safe. Thanks, kid. Don't forget this guy. He hands her the stuffed bear. Penny rolls her eyes, but takes it and hugs him to her chest. Good night, May. Good night, sweetie. Penny stands and shuffles on her sock-clad feet down the hall. Well, I should keep going. Thanks for letting me take up space on your couch for the day. You are always welcome here, Tony. That stupid lump is back in his throat. It's like a tennis ball stuck there. Rough, painful, and impossible to swallow down. Have a good night. Get some sleep too. You look tired. That's just part of my charm. I'm sure it is. May sees him to the door. She squeezes his arm. The motion is strongly maternal, and the ball in his throat stays there for the rest of the night.